As far as on the court and some things that just really piss you off and bother you about what you've seen from this team these last two games, two things that just seem so easy, innate, something that out of a timeout or when you have some time, you should be able to draw up and understand. Two things this team struggles with incredibly bad. One, out of bounds defense. Holy mother of God. Zion James, who killed you from the three-point line and killed you all day, he gets a wide open corner three with 2 minutes to go and you're up by one.
That wasn't a Penny thing. That was a David Jones thing.
Regardless, in the end of the day, no matter what Penny does to deflect blame, it always comes back to the head coach.
Right.
Like it always is going to come back to that. You can say I have the best game plan ever, but if your guys aren't executing the game plan, what does that say about you and the way you are pushing it to them? You have to get across to them. But regardless, the out of bounds play to Zion James, and then the other thing, the final possessions in those two losses. Maybe Javon Quinterly in the USF game, you can't really do much about it. You got 6 seconds, and Penny tried to call a timeout, but regardless, there wasn't a plan there. But the one against Tulane, what in God's name?
You didn't like that shot?
You have 12 seconds to go, and they just sort of pass it around the perimeter. You're down by 2, by the way. Pass it around the perimeter, and they just heave up a three-point ball from David Jones.
You didn't like that shot?
Who has not been particularly great from the three-point line since entering conference play. Listen, the shot is whatever. There was no plan. There was no play drawn up. There was no action. It was just sort of, all right, let's dribble it out here and take the last shot and try to go win the game. They didn't try to get to the rim when they were down by 2, didn't try to force overtime. It was just, let me heave this three.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what is that? How of all the things that you could draw up and do on the final possession, that's what we ended on?
Yeah. I mean, there does at times, I'm not going to say it's, 100% of these games, but the last two games, like it just has felt like a team that is a little bit off and a little bit out of sync. Like they just don't look like the same team that just a week ago, beat Wichita State by 26 points. And we were saying, okay, here could be the breakthrough point. And it's been like that a lot. I'm not going to act like this is just a new problem. Like it's just these last two games, they haven't been in sync. I mean, you go back to the UTSA game, like there are multiple games where they just haven't been fully in sync. And I think that's another reason for concern because you're at this point of the season, you're over halfway through the season, and you still, in some of these games, can't get on the same page. Even weirder than that to me is that when it is a big game, they look in sync. And they look like they're playing together and They look like they're playing well. And then you get in these other games and it's like people just kind of want to take over. It's like they can really only play good basketball or their best basketball against quality opponents. When they play teams that aren't great or that they feel like they should roll over, they just don't look in sync on the floor. So
I have an analogy about this. I have an analogy. Right. And Gabe will understand this and Christian, you will soon enough. But when you're married and you Christian, when you're married, what is the definition of a good marriage? Is it the going from like moment to moment, like vacation to vacation, big moments, happy moments? Is it being really good in those moments, or is it those mundane, everyday working together as a team? Is like coexisting, cohabitating, like fulfilling each other's goals, those kinds of things? A sign of a good marriage is not being able to go from like one Cancun trip to a Dominican Republic trip to the Bahamas to this to that.
It's easy to be happy in those.
It's easy to be good then. It's easy to be happy when you're on the beach all the time playing and frolicking in the sand. But when you're having to pay bills and when you're having to get up and go to work and when you're having to see each other when you're sick and when you're having to all these kinds of things, that's when and that's where we're at right now for this Tigers team. They are in the midst of that mundane doing life with each other type of thing. And we are seeing that, man, there's some struggle there.
Yeah.
Kenny Stubblefield, the philosophizer. I like that one. That's really good. That's a great
analogy.
That's a really good one. Because this team just has to learn, man. They have to learn how to really step up in these type of moments. And here's the other thing too. I think it's even more so than the players, right? I think, especially in that South Florida game in that second half, I saw the coaching staff. I saw Penny sort of take his foot off the gas emotionally. They didn't press and put as much pressure on Ball in the second half. They didn't know what to do against the 1-3-1 zone, and Penny didn't take timeouts to really explain it to him. I just think everybody, coaching staff, support staff, players, like they have to pull in the right direction and get it right in those normal moments, in those moments against UAB on a freaking, Wednesday night. Like they just have to pull in the right direction. They have more than enough talent. And I see this too. I see people talking about Caleb Mills being out, and that's big. It's huge. I'm not doubting it at all. Their perimeter defense has not been the same since he left. But at the same time, it can't possibly be this bad consistently just because one guy's out.
Yeah.
That's a want to, and I think that's a leadership thing more than anything. Yeah, Caleb Mills is gone. You could talk about the on-court stuff. To me, it's substantially more about off-court and what he did in rallying that second group and the sacrifices he made. That's more important than anything really he did on floor, and he did a lot on floor.
All right, let me ask you this, Christian, as we're about to move on. Give me one or two fixes. Both of y'all give me one or two fixes for this team. Like, what do you see coming out of – this season's not over. They're 15-4. Everything is still in front of them that they can get. But what are some things – based on these last two games, some of the comments that you're hearing, what is one or two fixes for this team moving forward?
Well, I think I talked about this last week on Gabe's show. Like they just have to just treat every game the same. To me, that's the biggest. I know that, we can go through underlying issues and on the court and all these types of things, but these guys are veterans. They know how to play. They know how to play in different systems. They know how to play against different defensive schemes. I think it's just a level of being bought in and a level of taking every game like it's the utmost important. Treat every game, treat that Wednesday night game against UAB like it is, a Saturday afternoon game against a top 20 opponent at home. And if they treat every game like that, they could win every game on the rest of their schedule. There's no doubt about that. Like they're talented enough to win out on this schedule. It's just, do they put that importance on every game? Do they bring their A game every game? Like, can they get that motivation? Can they find that inner motivation to say, okay, this is what we're playing for? Let's not look at today. Let's not look at we're playing one of the worst teams in the country today on the road in front of 800 people. Let's look at it as this prepares us for the moment. This gets us to the moment where we're getting to play in big-time NCAA tournament games as a high seed and, potentially – make a run at it. And if they can do that, they're fine. I think that fixes almost everything if they can do that.
I think that is definitely one thing I would point to. The second point is I think you could have all the intensity in the world, but if you're still playing hero ball on both ends the way this team does, you'll still have some struggles night to night. They had more turnovers than assists in the game against Tulane. They had 14 turnovers, 12 assists. I mean, David Jones, he's unbelievable. He's one of the best offensive players, best players in college basketball so far this year. But he's got to learn to share the ball. He had 32 points and 11 rebounds, no assists.
Yeah.
So, you just have to be better at sharing the ball on the offensive end. And I think on the defensive end, I know that hero ball is something that is attached to strictly offense. Oh, this guy just tries to go get off the bounce. He tries to get it for himself. But on defense, I see it too, man. When the ball comes off the rim, and you're trying to transition into your defense, sometimes you just have to let that rebounder go, and you have to get back. That's what happened in that UTSA game. They just had a bunch of transition threes that they knocked down because no one was back. I think that they try to jump passing lanes a little too often to try to go get knockaways, which is not a bad thing, but you have to be more careful and more sound defensively. I just think that on both ends, playing a little bit more within yourself and in structure with a team would go a long damn way. And I don't think it would hurt for Penny to draw up a few things on the offensive end, but I'll leave that out for a second.